10 of the Pharaoh's Gods releases on September 16th. In addition to reprinting a large percentage of the cards from 2021's core booster sets, this year's Mega Packs also includes several imports to the TCG as well as a few world premiere cards. Here's everything you need to know. The Revived Sky God is a normal trap card that cannot be negated and special summons Slifer the Sky Dragon from your graveyard, then makes each player draw until they have 6 cards in hand each. Also, you can banish it from the graveyard to put Monster Reborn from your deck or graveyard on top of the deck, and if there's a Divine Beast in graveyard, you can draw a card. Could literally be anything. Although this card is brand new, it's already gotten a fair amount of interest from the community. Fulfilling its condition isn't that hard, seeing how the card itself can be found off of Trap Trick and turboed into with Curious Griffin. Meanwhile, Slifer can be sent off of Branded Fusion as material for Brigran the Glory Dragon. You can also find both halves of this combo via Tear Lament, a strategy that natively mills a huge chunk of its deck and plays the Curious Griffin combo. Now that we're clear on how to use this card, we can talk about the payoff, which is surprisingly strong. First of all, assuming you used your whole hand for your turn 1 setup combo and you activate this card during your opponent's draw phase, you'll be drawing 6 cards while your opponent who just drew for turn will get 0. From that point on, your opponent will have to play around Slifer's deceptively powerful Floodgate-like effect that will destroy anything your opponent summons in attack position with 2000 or less attack, and anything that doesn't die to this effect will still have its attack drastically reduced. Needing to put everything in defense position or be left with a field of low attack monsters will severely hinder your opponent's ability to use their normal summon, link plays, or the battle phase. Not that they could attack over Slifer anyway, since it would start out at 6000 attack after resolving Sky God. Now, is setting up Slifer better than using Curious Griffin to search Skill Drain or Anti-Spell? I don't know. I don't play Danger Tier, but this is the channel that brought you Sprite Extra Link. I don't really care if you should do something. All that really matters to me is that you could. The Breaking Ruin God is a quick play spell card that also can't be negated, summons Obelisk from hand or graveyard, and makes it unaffected by opponent's card effects for the turn. Also, you can banish it from the graveyard after tributing 2 or more monsters at the same time to banish all monsters from your opponent's graveyard and inflict 500 damage to them for each. Soul Energy Max is a normal trap card that, if you control Obelisk, tributes 2 monsters to destroy all your opponent's monsters, then deal 4000 damage to them. And by banishing it from the graveyard, you can add an Obelisk from deck to hand, then immediately normal summon it. These cards are clearly designed to use Obelisk to kill your opponent as quickly as possible. Ruin God summons Obelisk faster than ever without even being susceptible to negation, and adds a small upside to its board clearing effect. Meanwhile, Soul Energy Max lets you use essentially the same effect as Obelisk without giving up its ability to attack, and even slamming your opponent for the extra 4k necessary to OTK them. Setting up these pieces isn't really consistent to any degree, but if you do manage to get everything set up, these cards can end games out of nowhere. The True Sun God is a continuous spell card that searches Ra or any card that mentions Ra on activation, keeps all monsters from attacking the turn they're special summoned except Ra, and can send itself from field or Immortal Phoenix from deck to the graveyard to send a Ra you control to the graveyard. If that last effect seems weird to you, that's because it is. The point of this card is meant to be turboing out Immortal Phoenix, which is a 4k towers that can clear boards in exchange for life points that summons itself from the graveyard whenever Ra is sent to the graveyard. It just goes about this goal in a very direct fashion, sending the Phoenix and then immediately killing your own Ra to trigger it. Ideally, I would have liked this card to have more of an inherent upside. Obviously, the upside is getting to trigger Immortal Phoenix's effect, but the way it reads on paper without context, it just seems like you're outing your own monster for no reason. Even just an effect like gaining some amount of life points would have fit the deck very well and helped enable Immortal Phoenix's removal effect. The first effect searches Sphere Mode, and as we all know, the biggest issue with Sphere Mode is that there weren't enough copies of it. Dual Tower is I heckin' love Duel Monsters anime! Moving on. Link into the Vrains is a normal spell that special summons 1 monster from hand negated, then immediately performs a Link summon that cannot be negated and your opponent can't respond on the resolution of. Also, when your Link monster is destroyed, you can banish it from the graveyard to add back a monster with the same type. This card is interesting for some decks as a form of extension that also protects some of the effects of your Link monsters. In decks like Sun Avalon, you can summon Lokai from hand, then immediately go into Dry Ass and use its effect during the summon window that your opponent can't respond to. Another cool home for it is Prankid, which used to be able to do the same play when it had Meow Moo, but even now can use this card in functionally the same way it would use Polymerization as a combo starter. If you open 2 Kids and Into the Vrains, you can normal a Kid, specially Other, then Link summon Dodo, and activate all 3 effects in the unrespondable window. Of course, the problem is that this card is unsearchable and only works if you already have material in hand, so it remains to be seen whether the additional extension and protection is worth the potential to brick on it. And the final new card is Rainbow Bridge of Salvation, a normal trap card that can, if there are 2 or more level 10 or higher monsters on the field with different types, shuffle all cards from both players' hands, fields, and graveyards into the deck, and then each player draws 5. You can also banish it from the graveyard to add a Crystal Beast monster, and any field spell from deck to hand. Obviously, the Fiber Jar effect can seem a little scary, but thankfully both effects are hard once per duel. One interesting home for this card could be an Eldritch, as both the Golden Lord and Lord of the Heavenly Prison are level 10 monsters with different types. Resetting both players' full suite of resources can be a turn-ending form of interruption, especially after your opponent has used up their normal summon and most of their deck's hard once per turn effects, making the 5-card hand you give them pretty much useless. And if they do manage to mount some amount of follow-up, Salvation's second effect can search everyone's favorite board-breaking field spell. It's Mystic Mine! Just as long as you're willing to play a Crystal Beast, I guess. In addition to these new cards, the tins also have a fairly decent selection of reprints for some cards that needed them. Nibiru and Dimension Shifter have both held around $10 since being released in the 2019 tins almost 3 years ago. Masquerade has stayed at $20 even though Branded has mostly fallen out of the meta. And coming in its 5th consecutive printing at the highest rarity in the set, Forbidden Droplet. Surely this time we'll make it affordable, right? Forbidden Droplet at a cheap price? Just a week away? How many more dead memes do I have to put here, Konami? Name your price. Other notable reprints include M-Pen, Underworld Goddess, Diviner, Mu Beta Fafnir, Incredible Ecclesia, Lord of the Heavenly Prison, Ready Fusion, Small World, Lightning Storm, Crossout Designator, All of the Ghost Girls, and Pot of Prosperity. So far, reception to the tins has been kind of divisive. Some people think they're shit, some people think they're a godsend. I'm personally reserving judgment until we see some actual pull rates because, while there's some good secrets, there's also some really bad ones. Also, there's some notable reprint snubs, like the Sword Souls, which, unlike most of Burst of Destiny, didn't make the cut. We know Moye is being reprinted in Magnificent Maven, so presumably they're saving the Sword Souls to sell that set. Also notably missing are the remaining cards from the OCG's History Archive collection. Only 4 of the cards from that set made it into this set's import slots, so there's several cards we still don't have a release date for. I still don't know how to end these videos.